Okay, Allie, I put this thing in a few weeks ago. It's a continuous glucose monitor, or a CGM, and it tracks your blood sugar levels. Lingo delivers content to you to educate you about glucose levels, exercise, nutrition, and how it all works together. They have 3 different objects to deliver this content. They have something they call a fundamental. They have something called a tutorial, and they also have something called a resource. All right. And they're almost the same, but not quite the same. Okay. And they're just all content delivery mechanisms with different structures. You're actually doing more work than what you need to do. And then that goes down to the user. The user, like, I have to do, my cognitive load is increased because I am having to juggle these 3 different things. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to show you this object map that I built that shows the ridiculousness of the content in Lingo. And then we'll actually look at how that manifests. Okay.
Take me away.
So here's the object map of these, just so we can like sit them side by side and really see how the structure is completely arbitrarily different. So they all have titles. Yay! And that's where it breaks down. That's basically all they have in common. Then they have fundamentals all have videos, but the resource has videos sometimes. Sometimes they don't have a video. Cool, that's fine. You don't have to have a video. But then if it's a fundamental, you get the video and you get a transcript that you can read, but no captions. If it's a tutorial, you get the video with captions, but no transcript. Okay.
Chaotic.
I mean, not one's necessarily better or worse, I guess, from a user experience standpoint. That could be argued, but like, it just seems arbitrary. Like, tutorials have captions and fundamentals have transcripts. And then a resource, because sometimes it's an article, has text in it and the video, but sometimes the video doesn't go with the text, or sometimes it's just text and just video. And then a fundamental has an icon for it. And a fundamental, you can also see whether you've watched it or not. But tutorials, you don't get that. You don't get to see whether you've watched that tutorial or not. It just always shows up there. It's just always there. Okay. Now, resources also show you whether you've watched them or not, yes or no, only if a resource is of type fundamental.
So even if a resource is a video, which you could have watched, it doesn't communicate that. It's only if it's
right. But I'm using a little bit of I'm having to do some deductive reasoning here that some resources, videos sometimes, is it only the resources that are fundamentals that have videos that show whether you've watched or not?
Oh, tricky. I see.
No, maybe. Okay. You can also bookmark a resource. Okay. But you can't bookmark a tutorial or a fundamental. And resources also have categories, and I think can be part of challenges. All right, I haven't fully reverse engineered that yet, but I have the first challenge that I did, I swear had resources in it. The challenge I'm in now doesn't have resources, but I can't get back to the first challenge that I did, so I have no idea. We might, when we look at it, we might just stop the challenge that I'm doing and see if we can figure that out. But I think if you're in a challenge, it could have resources. Right now, it's just text. So this is the object map, and this is what we call a shapeshifter, okay? They even have different names. This is just way more complexity than what is needed for an app like Lingo, okay? Lingo needs one content delivery mechanism. It should have been designed one time with one structure. The users don't have to relearn these, learn 3 times how to interact with content. So let's look at actually what this looks like in practice. When this object map becomes manifested into an app, what happens?
Let's experience this.
You can see my lovely glucose level there. And we'll go over this whole screen in another episode. This is even just logging stuff is like a UI nightmare. It's actually really difficult to log stuff, but how spikes and events are connected, well, they're not connected really well, so they're isolated. But we're going to go over into the Discover. And when you click in to a fundamental, you get this version of the design. You can see that I've watched this like a good Lingo student. I've got the video, and then this here is the transcript of the video. Okay, and it's got references too. And then it has, I don't actually even know what these are. It's got resources attached to it. So if we went back to our object map, we would have a fundamental has a relationship with a resource. Okay. So they are connected there.
Is this transcript actually what they're saying in the video, or is it supplementary? Like, is it just added?
What they're saying.
It's exactly what they're saying.
From what I've been able to tell, unless it changes video by video, which is could be the case. And then we have lingo tutorials. Okay. So it's just lingo tutorials and fundamentals are very similar content, but not exactly the same content, but they're completely different format. You know, see, they look completely different. Oh, you get the timestamp here too. I need to add that to our object map as well.
One thing that I find interesting is just the look of the fundamentals make it seem like it's almost a collection of going to be tutorials. Like the just color block with the icon, it makes it look to me like a folder, literally like a folder. And I'm going to open it up and see multiple things under it, but it's not, which just is something I'm noticing here. Like,
right. And like the shorter titles too, it almost seems like this is like a category or something like that.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. And that's like kind of playing off of what we're used to seeing in other applications like this, where I feel like that's sort of become a pattern of just the color block without the image or anything, without the little image preview. Yeah. It feels like this might be a collection, which is not the case.
Which is interesting. Well, it's not the case, but it's interesting that you found related resources, which though that tells me it's not, those are just like similar in content, maybe not necessarily like a collection of things, obviously, because there is like the main content for prioritizing protein.
You wait for it. Just you wait for it. Okay. We've got these things, these little lingo tutorials, right?
Yep.
One of them is called the fundamentals.
So does it explain the fundamentals above? Oh my goodness.
And then this one just opens. So it's a completely different format. So we have like a fundamentals explainer, but then we have like this fundamentals thing that looks like a bunch of categories, but it's actually not. It's like a series of things. And then we go into resources and look at this. Fundamentals is a category within resources. And many of these are actually, if we keep scrolling down, some of them are the same, I promise. Now they're all mixed up, right? But if we go to all, actually, it'll show, let's see if we can, like your day, welcome to Lingo, watched. That's the same thing as this welcome to Lingo. So welcome to Lingo, and then it's in a completely different format right here. It's the same content, though. You
can bookmark this one. But you can't bookmark the other one when it's above in that tutorial section.
Yeah. So if you want to bookmark it, don't try to bookmark it here. You can't. So that would be a broken object, right? So this one right here, it's broken. The call to action that exists just isn't on the thing. So it is broken from its call to action. But it does have it. It does have it in a completely different format down here with the ability to bookmark.
I want to play a little devil's advocate here of like, if we make it look different, if we have it in a lot of different spots, people are going to engage with it more. Like, if it's in that section, they might click it and play. And then here's another version and it looks a little different. Ooh, maybe that's enticing. Ooh, what if it's no image? Maybe they'll like, is this I don't know. Have you seen that? I'm starting to just feel that vibe of like, ooh, we're going to try to trick people to like engage with this content in as many ways as possible. So let's just I don't advocate for this. I know you and I both wouldn't, but it feels like that's what is happening.
That's what, so if it is intentional, so my view is what happens here is a bunch of little cards get designed and then content just gets shoved into it. So somebody designed this before actually knowing what the content was. And they designed this pretty little thing and they designed this pretty little thing and like a design system completely detached from the actual content. So like it was like wireframed, and like a wireframe looks quote unquote boring if everything is the same. Like what am I even doing here as a UX designer if like it's just nice and consistent, right?
Yeah.
But let's just go with that case that somebody was like, ooh, well, maybe they won't click on it here, but if it's like over in here, they'll click on it in that way, right? And I think there might be like, let's just like say that you can get like 3 points for that, just arbitrary point system that I just made up in my head. Like you could get 3 points for like, okay, if you put it in lots of different places in lots of different outfits, maybe you'll get more engagement,
more traction. Yeah.
More traction, right? So maybe you'll gain 3 points, but what you're losing 100 points in building a mental model and in creating clarity and showing this is what our house is built of. And this is just really simple to navigate this house and to understand what the pieces are in this house and what value is here. So you don't feel like you're missing something. You don't feel like you're just kind of clicking around and sort of randomly grasping on something. So yes, I think what's happening in our industry is we are not recognizing the value of consistency within the same object and reducing the number of objects as far as like concepts, mental model objects, not UI objects, but mental model objects, that the more we reduce that, the easier something is going to be to use. And if we have a lot of extraneous complexity, then we're just losing any points that we might have gained and then some on like making it more engaging and like adding like maybe if it just wears lots of different outfits then people will click on it. So that would be my argument.
Oh, it's great. And also it makes it harder to find because you might have said, wait, there was a good resource I want to go back to. Where was that? Was that a tutorial? Was it a fundamental? It just gets, for findability, which again, I think would be more important if you're delivering really good, useful content that you're going to actually learn from and help, like you want to be able to find it quickly and use it. And I feel like there should be more focus on that, creating really good, useful content than the containers and like trying to come up with so many ways just to improve engagement, that feels
totally.
So yes.
And that is just like that argument. I feel like I heard that like 10 years ago was the first time I heard that of like, oh, if everything looks the same, which is basically what we're advocating here, like just create one outfit for these things and make them consistent AF. I remember hearing like, well, isn't that going to be boring for the users? And I'm like pulling my hair out, like no user, like I'm not coming to Lingo to be wowed by all the pretty design, variations here. No, I'm here to learn. Like there's so many other ways that we can get creative within design and we can like put our energy into really beautiful micro interactions, really beautiful visualizations, making this one version so amazing, even potentially adding different, for example, different calls to action, different features. Like one of them that I was thinking there's bookmark, but then one that would be really interesting is like a resurface. So to be able to say like, I read this, but I feel like I need to read this again and like remind me, especially with just this content, this wouldn't make sense for a lot of apps. So it was something like Lingo, if it's telling me all the science behind why it's so great to just even move your body for 10 minutes before and after you eat, like I can take that in, but I'm like, please like snooze that and remind me again in 2 weeks why that's important because I'll probably forget and I might need to hear that 3 times. Like that would be a really interesting feature, like a snooze or a resurface, this little bit of content. And you could play with that instead.
Play with that. Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's just making it more useful, figuring out, spend some more time in research instead of like designing 3 of these things when you could have one. So basically what we want to do here is let's just take this over. Let's just call it a resource.
Simplify this.
Let's simplify this. So can we just call them resources?
Yes.
Okay, let's just call them resources.
They're all resources.
They're all just resources. So yes.
It has a title.
Yes, we have a title. We're going to say video. Sometimes it doesn't always have to have a video.
Yep.
And then I would say it could have text.
Yep.
Or like if video, transcript. So
some conditional.
Video. And the video sometimes, and we should always like have captions too for accessibility. If video. All right. So we'll have both of those. So we can have something like maybe, I don't know, like a transcript tab or something, or maybe it's just if it is a video, you have the transcript and the captions. That's cool.
Yeah, and I think it was the tutorial one, like popped open, and because you're on a mobile device, it took up the whole screen, almost like an Instagram reel or a TikTok. Like that was the vibe I was getting. They wanted this like short form content, and I could see, yeah, like even if you want to still do that for a resource that's a type of tutorial, that's fine. But like, is there a way still to get to, yes, the actual transcript of it, captions, being able to bookmark it? Like we can still have that feel, I think.
What we would want to watch out for, yes. And what we would want to watch out for is resources opening differently, like feeling really, really different. So if the card looks the same, and then sometimes it opens into a full screen video that auto plays, and sometimes it opens more into like an article feel that you have to click the video. The purist in me is like, no, let's just have the one version, because then that creates a trust issue, right? Two things that look exactly the same have a different reaction when you click on them. So, but maybe it's like a swipe up, and then you get the transcript or the text, and then you can also get, I don't think we need the icon. We can get rid of that. But
well, what if these are different types? I'm almost wondering, is this a resource has a base, an object base, and then we have the different types like a recipe, which I don't even know if we looked at, but that was one, an article, like a video is kind of different than a recipe in my mind. So they're going to have.
Right. I didn't even want to bring in recipes because yes, that's a whole other. Allie, do you want to go? We're on time crunch right now. Yeah, there's also different types of resources. The recipe is the one that I found that was like, when we were talking about this before, that I was like, oh, that just feels like a different type of thing. But yeah, I mean, this is something like we talk about in our masterclass. We talk about whether something we just kind of like model it as conditional logic or model it as an object base with derived objects. And I think this is the case where I would just, it's too simple. I think there's only a little bit of conditional logic. So as far as just the modeling and how I represent this, I would still probably represent it as one resource. We could put like type. So like format or type, and that could be like video or article or recipe.
Yeah, I think that's nice to know that I'm going to watch something, because if I'm in public sitting, say, in a waiting room and I open it up, I don't want to hear, but I might want to read something. So I do like that we could like indicate, hey, this is a video, whatever that looks like, a play button, actually a tag, something like that. Yeah.
And then this is also like from a business standpoint, like where do they, like, I think that they invested too much in creating all this complexity over here when there's like fundamental stuff that's wrong with actually just like tracking your food within the app, which is like,
oh boy,
kind of like go put
get
your
that
energy
right
over
first.
There. Yeah. Then to have like all these different types and all these different experiences around all these different content types, like just keep it simple. One way of delivering content. Sure, some of them are going to be videos, some are going to be articles. There might be a little bit of like if-then statements in there to tweak it, but it should still feel like, I think, the same thing when you open it up. So let's pull over
length of
the length of video, bookmarked. You should be able to bookmark it no matter what. And I think it should have a category, and sometimes the category might be fundamentals, as it already is. So you don't need a specific fundamentals display for like, if it's this category, we're going to show it differently sometimes. And then related resources, I think that was only showing in the fundamental. I don't think it should.
I think that's smart though, to connect, like, if there are videos that I just think that's smart when you're dealing with content like this, especially resources like, oh, I might also be interested in this. Like, serve that up to me. I want to see that.
I think the main thing is like how to reconcile these three things so that they're just the one thing.
I want to dig in. I want to see, like, I want to play a little bit, just like a wireframey play. But how can we simplify? Like, now that we have the new structure, this object map, one resource, what would that change about the UI? So let me play. Okay. Why don't you go do something?
I'm gonna go take a walk. And how about we time box this to, like, what do you think? 20 minutes?
Yeah, 20 minutes. Let's do this. Okay. The clock is ticking. Let's take a look at these different just cards. So we've got our resource, we've got this fundamental card, and then we've got the tutorial card. So this is like before I've clicked in on any of these. I took some examples of different resources here. So this is just like an article, and this is that recipe where we're talking about, just to compare how they're a little bit different. And what we want to do, what I want to show Sophia when she gets back, is just one design for a resource that supports it being a fundamental or a tutorial. We want to remove some of the shape shifting, and let's just see what we can come up with here. okay, I'm feeling great about the base of this. We've got our attributes in place, but now I need to consider how it changes if it's, say, a fundamental, which is like a video or an article. So let's play with that. Okay, so you can see here the visual differences we need to account for are really based on the type of resource it is, either a video or an article. The category, right, that fundamental or tutorial, is really just metadata that can help me filter and find other similar ones. So we've got the main card here, an alternative little mini card, and now I have a few minutes. Let's try and sketch out what happens when you click on this and go to the resource detail page.
Okay, I'm back.
You're back.
How'd it go?
You know what? A lot easier than I thought, which would make sense because we did all the hard work already. We figured out what the structure was of just a single resource. I played a little bit with something different, like kind of deviated a little bit from our object map, but not crazy. But
Which
okay.
is what always happens, right? You do the object map and then you start playing with the screens and things need to like shift around a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's take a look at, I've split these up into, at their bare bones, we've got, to me, what seems like visually different is either it's a video or an article. And that's going to be different because they're going to have the play button or they're not going to have, it's going to have just an image on it, right?
Right.
Now, what I found to be interesting is we only had the watched for when it was a video, which makes sense. Like I've watched it, but what about, I think you even had it in the object map, like read. Have you read it? And I was wondering, is there a mechanism to say, like, does it just know you've opened it? Or do you mark something as watched or read? So I was just kind of like, how did we, which is, a question for a different day. Someplace, I don't love the location of this. This could be over an image. You might not see this, but we do need somewhere to say how long this thing is.
It could also go under the title. That's fine too. And one thing we didn't do is we didn't do our prioritization, which is something that we often do in an object map where we'll take all of our little doohickey cards and then we'll actually rearrange them to be like, okay, how important is the watch time over? And we probably would say, it's probably a little bit less important than the title. And maybe it goes under the title. But cool. It's fine there for now. You spent 20 minutes on this. This is amazing. Yeah.
This felt less important to me what type it was, but I do like communicating that. We've got the title. Sometimes I didn't see videos having a description, but like they could. I know we talked through that. Maybe it does. So I just mocked these up without.
Right. And I mean, they could even be more similar because if we have the transcript on the video too, then just the transcript goes where the text goes. And then it's
like starts there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was
exactly the same?
What was interesting is I found in the screenshot, where was I? Okay, so we're looking at this is an article, but it's also a fundamental. And on the detail page of it, the description is just gone, not having enough water. Yeah. It just goes right into. And did you see how they changed the category style? So here they're little like chips. And here they're
shape. We wouldn't do this. Right there.
We wouldn't do this. And I actually was just getting to like what this would look like on a detail page. We would just open it up and have our text here, have our related, maybe a mini card.
Yeah. And honestly, from a content strategy perspective, I would just get rid of the short description.
I know. I wondered that.
You would just have to rewrite it. It's like a whole, unless maybe like you can get AI to do it or something like that, which is definitely a possibility. But like, I don't know how much it really adds to an app like this, right? The content is secondary in purpose, right? So they just need to make this as easy on themselves as possible. I think that they're a pretty small company too. So like, that's adding additional content creation that has to happen.
Oh, yeah. And what's even interesting is like some of these titles, they literally did not fit. Like they had to cut them off.
Yeah.
Flavors with so then I'm like, well, make room for the title and finish it, then adding a description.
Right. So they don't even have the full title, but then you get some of the short description. Great.
Yes.
And they're both truncated. So you're like, So the big takeaway here, I think, is just to remember, like, to watch out for your shapeshifters, because you're actually doing more work than what you need to do. And then that goes down to the user.
If you liked this, please like and subscribe, comment, let us know. We'd love to hear from you all. And happy OUXing.
Happy OUXing and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye, all.